Hi, I'm David Susan, and this is Inside the Leader's Mind, where we look at what gets in the way becomes the way. We have a fabulous guest today. I'm so excited to welcome Shellee Howard. Shellee is the founder and CEO of College Ready, See Our Future Now, and University Ready. She's a certified independent college admission consultant. She is a career counselor, a financial college strategist, an international speaker, and award winner. She's been featured a lot of places: Fox, CBS, NBC. She's the author of two best selling books. And if you're a parent, you got to listen to this: How to Send Your Student to College Without Losing Your Mind or Your Money, and the College Admission Plan Simplified. Shellee and her team help middle and high school students and their parents by preparing them for their future. She helps them find their gifts, their talents, their passions, their core values, find the perfect career, and teaches them the path to take for financial success. And for students who wish to pursue college, she helps them create a standout strategy while striving for the best academic, social, athletic, and financial fit. She is a fifth generation from Orange County, California, enjoys inspiring teenagers all over the world. And this is one of the coolest things. She's really passionate about various causes. And privately, through her third world outreach projects, she is currently building a school in Uganda for 800 plus children and providing education opportunities in Oaxaca. Did I say that right, Shellee?
Oaxaca.
Oaxaca, and
Uh-huh.
engaging in other humanitarian efforts. And you'll find her traveling and serving those in need when she is not working. Please welcome Shellee Howard.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
I am so excited to have you for a couple selfish reasons, but also to help others. I have three kids. I wish I would have met you a long time ago. Uh, so those of you that are listening that have kids, I hope you can gain from that. But also just from your in perspective, leadership, you run a company. You've been running a company for how many years now? So,
18 years.
so I think you know something to be that successful for 18 years. So I'm excited to jump in with you. I would love to hear just a brief overview of how you got to where you are today.
It's my favorite story. And I'll tell you the brief edition because we only have, 20, 30 minutes. But it all started, parents, just like you. I was at home preparing a snack for my teenagers. My son comes home from school and he's like, Mom, I know exactly what I want to do and exactly where I want to go to college. And I'm like, what happened today at school? He goes, Oh, yeah. So the high school counselor came and they said, we need to pick our classes for next year and we could do whatever we want. And I didn't know what to put. So I'm asking if you could help me. And I said, Absolutely, I can help you. Right. That's what we do as parents. We step right into it. And I said, By the way, what are you thinking? He says, What? I want to be a brain surgeon. I want to go to one of those Ivy things. And I'm like, Okay. And I think he saw me holding my breath because he's like, Mom, are you sure you can do this? And I'm like, Oh, absolutely. We've got this. So, long story short, that young man was my why. He had big hopes and dreams, and he actually did the strategy I built for him. When he graduated, he applied to 12 schools, got into 11, 7 full ride, got a full ride to USC for leadership, got the presidential award. And this mom was celebrating because that's an hour and 10 minutes from my house. And then, darn it, Harvard sent this beautiful envelope. And in the envelope, it said, We'd like to fly you out to see Harvard. And he thought they were making a joke. He thought it was some friends just doing a nasty prank. He made me call Harvard, and it was so embarrassing. I'm like, Oh, we received this thing. And they're like, Yeah. And they flew us out there, and we walked along the Charles River, just I think I was the only one debating the decision. I think only one of us was really not sure. And he fell in love. He knew straight away that that is where he needed to be. And he is now, at 31 years old, a orthopedic surgeon with a total of $30,000 in debt. So he will have that done in his first, I don't know, paycheck probably.
That is crazy. Congratulations on that. That's amazing. That is amazing. So I got to ask you, because there's, you know, people that are listening to this that might say, oh, you either had all this money or you were already famous, you're in Orange County, maybe you're an actress, maybe, or maybe they're thinking, maybe, that's one in a million kid. As you have coached, I'm sure hundreds, if not
Thousand.
thousands over the years, um, what do you think the secret is today that you took from that you now work with parents on that that helps them to replicate this?
Well, I think the first thing that listeners should know is I have 4 kids. So I do know the difference between some kids are gifted in certain things and others are gifted in other things. So I will say he did not have a perfect GPA. He did not have a perfect test score. He had leadership. And I just want you to listen, parents, that leadership was game changing for the amount of money he received. So, my other 3 children did exactly the same. They went to college in 4 years, graduated debt free at different universities. But the one thing they all had in common was my focus on treating college as a business. And so many people get so emotional, wrapped up in it's a trophy of some sort of being a good or a bad parent. I looked at it very differently. I wanted to see the return on investment of my education for him. I did not want him to be strapped with debt and then marry somebody who had debt. Now they're double debted. I am a true investor of, you know, all things. And so I look at every purchase as what is my return on investment? And so because he wanted to be a doctor, I knew he needed to go to a very important name school to be one of the best surgeons in the world, which was his dream, not mine. He has come down to reality that there are a lot of smart people out there, and maybe he's not going to be the most brilliant surgeon out there, but he loves what he does. He's now putting people back together. He does hips and knees, and he is so passionate. And it all started from getting him involved in leadership in school and helping him to build a passion with purpose project where he led others to create change.
That is so cool. That is so cool. In your Because everyone's got a different, this is inside the leader's mind. So I always look at it like perspective here. When you think about leadership, you talk about leadership, you teach this to help aspiring kids. How do you define leadership? Because it can be interpreted so many different ways.
This is such a great question. And I think I would have answered it very differently when I was a young person. As a more mature person, I would say leadership is being that shining light that everybody wants to know why you're shining, why you're so successful, but yet wants to follow. So leadership is about inspiring people to do the work, to get the project done, to make a difference. But if you have no followers, you have no leaders. So, in my definition, the followers now play a very critical role to the success of that leader.
So, if you were to boil it down, and I always look at root cause, what do you think that secret sauce is? What is the root cause that enables someone to have other people that want to follow them or be inspired by, what is that?
We call it core values. So, what I teach my teenagers is you are made up of gifts, talents, and advocacy. You come with and have learned your core values. By the time you are starting high school, your core values are super solid inside of you. But you also have other gifts, and those gifts could be You're a talented soccer player. Like at 3 years old, you were shooting goals like nobody's business. Well, other people have the gift of leadership. It could be their spiritual gift, it could be their personal gift. And what does that look like? The person either has done a lot of training. I know when I started with Procter and Gamble, we did a lot of leadership training. We trained to have more training, to talk about more training, how to be a good leader. And so I attribute a lot to that Fortune 500 company. I was with them 8.5 years and climbed the ladder very quickly because I had people who believed in my vision, who saw that I walk the walk and talk the talk, and they knew I always had their back. And I believe that those core values of mine were that light that they wanted to follow. And so even back then, I remember I was a cheerleader. So talk about being a leader from the beginning. Leading as a cheerleader, we're leading an audience to do something, to get involved, to get excited, to inspire them to stand up and yell. It doesn't change all that much from what I do now. I get to inspire teenagers to be the best version of themselves. How do I do that? I listen. I ask them open ended questions. What is their why? I care about them. And when you care about others, they want to follow you because they want to do and be and see what's going to be next.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So I want to transition a little bit because you are a leader, not just teaching and helping, but you're a leader of your organization. What do you think your superpower is as a leader? And maybe you just said it. Maybe what you're talking about for others is you, but I just want to confirm. In your opinion, you look at yourself and say, what is my superpower? What am I really good at?
Well, for sure, my spiritual gift is leadership. I mean, I've taken the test so many times and it keeps coming up as number one. Hospitality, very low on the list. Sorry, family. But the reality that I talk about is when I was in high school, I was the catcher on my softball team. I played for the USA softball team and I was the catcher there. The catcher's the leader of the team. They direct the dance on the field. I have a natural gift of inspiring others to want to be their best. And that's what I get to do every single day. And that is the best part of my career with my team and with my students.
What do you think as you think of your strength, but as you look at other leaders, people that are in leadership roles, they could be senior executives or anyone else in a leader role. What do you think if you were to give them advice? And and I always want to be careful with this because I hate to imply they're not doing well and they're not good. But I think we always have in whatever our role is, we have a perspective and I of what we think. What do you think other people could do that would make them even better based on your experience and what you've seen and working with college admissions and working with kids and just running your own team? So what advice would you give for other leaders, not aspiring, right? People, but people
Right.
that are already in a role to be even better?
So I tell my teenagers this all the time, and it may make you fall out of your chair because you did ask the question. But here I go. Fail forward. Stop trying to wait until everything is perfect, all figured out, no possibility of something going sideways, and then adjust. Learn how to be an active listener, an active participant, and lean into people and genuinely ask them, why is that important to you? And they will respond in kind of, thank you for asking. I now see that you value me and who I am. And so as an entrepreneur, that's a gift that was given to me very long time ago by my father, who is an entrepreneur. And he said, if you wait until you're perfect, and then he just stopped. He had nothing left to say. And I remember thinking, but I've always tried to please you and I've always wanted to be, great grades and everything. And he said, it is okay. It is okay as long as you learn to be better on the other side. And that is what I like a lot of leaders to understand. and teenagers. We get so caught up in the best day of everybody's life on social media instead of really looking at these are real people. They're not perfect.
Right, right. What about aspiring leaders, people that are not there yet? And I know maybe you've already touched on this because in a way you did, but someone who says, okay, look, I'm not there yet. I don't have the secret sauce, but I know I want to be a leader. Or move up in an organization. What would you tell them? What would your advice be to them?
I would say put yourself around the 5 most inspiring people that you could possibly want to hang out with. You are as good as the people that you spend time with. There's no doubt I believe in that. Read and really lean into that reading. Don't just go through the words, but put it into practice. When I was first growing up in Procter and Gamble and my dream was to be on at the executive board, all I kept doing was reading 7 Steps to Highly Effective People. I mean, I could go on and on. I read all of them and then I put them into action. So I really believe that some of it is you've got to try it, but do it around safe people that that inspire you and that you can learn from. Put yourself in a room where the playground is a bunch of outstanding leaders.
So I want to touch on that because I think oftentimes we hear this, but people don't do it. What do you think holds people back from doing that to go to a mentor or go to someone who inspires or go to someone who they aspire to? What do you think holds people back from doing that? Because there's this whole idea that if you take a player, right, and a player is the best. They always say in leadership, and I see this everywhere, A's hire A's, right? They want to be athlete. The best athletes want to play the best athletes, and B's hire C's. And
Mm.
oftentimes they don't want people that are better or even the same. They go less.
Ooh.
And so, do you think, or why do you think someone doesn't? They're here, and they're not going better. Why do you think maybe they're afraid to do it, or what is it?
Well, I can speak for myself. I can't speak for others. And for me, when I first became a millionaire, it was a little uncomfortable. It felt like I was an imposter. Like, are you really a CEO? Are you really that? I had a hard time understanding the impact that I had made. And so I held myself back thinking, wait, you're not at their level. Like you'll get there, but you're not there yet. And I remember I'm a part of an organization called Pinnacle Global Network, and it's all high level CEOs, CFOs, the C levels. And I remember walking into my first meeting and my stomach was flipping upside down. And I consider myself to talk to anybody. And I felt tongue tied. Like I saw people who had owned amazing corporations, multi billions. And I was like, hi. And the first time I stood up in this group, I remember my voice cracking like I was a teenager all over again. So I think it's our negative self talk that keeps us from our greatness. I've done a lot of deep work on positive self talk, on you can do it. You have every what if you not who, that type of thing. And so I would say for those of you who are aspiring, go do it. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be weird. It's like the first time you played a sport, you didn't know the rules. You'll learn the rules and you'll understand that guess what? They want you to succeed. They want to lift you up. They want you to do amazing things. It's not like you think it would be. At least that's been my experience.
I love that. I do a lot of work on perception, right? I call it perception code, which is a lot of times it's our ego and it's our identity and how we perceive stuff. And what I've experienced, what I think in you're saying this is we have this fear, but oftentimes it's the ego, the perception that, oh, either they're better or I'm going to be judged. And I think I've seen that hold people back as opposed to the people who are more confident, or I don't want to say confident, they don't, I don't want to say they don't care, but they're not so worried about do I look stupid? Do I look bad? And instead, they're just willing to go up to someone and meet them and say, hey, I'd love you to mentor me. I'd love your opinion. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to see you. Um, and I think that is something I've really focused with young people on, is
Mm.
trying to get over that, because I think that sometimes helps them become better leaders too, and they can put that
Right.
aside.
I love that. I encourage teenagers to start a podcast and interview their next the dream job. How
It's a
cool is
brilliant. That's brilliant. I love that. I
Yeah,
love that.
find the 5 people you want their job and ask them if they'll be on your podcast. They would most likely be honored, right? That's what we found. And all of a sudden you're in this place of how do I be that? And it's a really cool thing. Teenagers, they are a group of people in general who is finding their way. And that's what leaders are. We're finding our way. We're finding our group. We're finding those people who need to be led, inspired, whatever you want to call it. So I have found that teenagers actually lean into it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that idea. So do a podcast.
Do a
Gives you a
podcast.
reason to talk to people, build a connection. I absolutely love that. So I want to shift gears just a little bit as we kind of come closer to the end here. And I want to reflect. You talked about your superpower. We've talked about kind of some of the challenges. I want to make it a little more personal for you as a leader. And as you think about leadership, team dynamics, what is one area for yourself that you really want to become even better at, or it's a challenge you're still trying to figure out? What would that be?
Small talk. I do not like small talk. I don't like talking about the weather. I don't like talking about the sports team. And it's a kind of a fun thing my family teases me because I love really deep conversations. I'm actually a very good listener. My parents thought I'd be a therapist because I could sit and listen to people all day. But don't put me at a cocktail party and ask me to go and mingle, and that is something that I have to work on every time I get asked because it's really not my favorite place.
Why do you think that is that a big deal from a leadership perspective to you? Is that a big deal? I mean, how is that impacting you? Or is it?
I People say, right, the golf course, the bar, there's many places you can do business. And so I've always gone to the event, the cocktail party the night before, the charity thing or whatever. And for me, I have the hardest time of just making small talk. I don't know, maybe you can diagnose that, but I love doing podcasts. I love getting to know people. I've been to 98 countries and I have a nonprofit in Uganda. So I love people. I just don't like to talk about random, boring stuff. Talk about travel for days. I could talk about travel for days. Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Anything else? Any other areas you wish, you say, if I could be even better as you reflect? Because I always think, getting inside the leader's mind.
Yeah.
Any other areas from a leadership, leading people, leading your teams for you personally?
I know when I lead my students in my nonprofit, I sometimes forget that leadership does not come natural to some people. And so it's easy to make assumptions like, can you just lead the next meeting? And they look at me with, like, oh, big eyes, like, me? Are you talking to me? And so I would like to be a little bit more sensitive and provide leadership training to those who do not feel ready to just step into it. And I think that I've learned that by dealing with the teenagers, that I can see on their face nonverbally that they are terrified by something that I take for granted.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it- what I think most people have experienced in their career is once they get far enough in their career, they forget what it was like day one. And so people, younger people or aspiring managers, leaders will say, "Oh, well, what do I do?" And we forget they're on step 1 and we're giving them step 10.
Yes.
And it's really hard. I found for myself when I coach and mentor, I found I have to step back and think, what was it like? I can't tell them the 10th step. I've got to say what's step 1, step 2. But we
Mhm.
forget what the struggle, we forget the challenge, we forget the mindset that we had to go through. And I think it's hard for a lot of leaders to coach and mentor because of that. And it takes, I think, a gift, and I think it takes patience
Mm.
to be able to do that and to do it well. And so for you to identify that, I mean, that's half the battle right there. That's beautiful.
For sure, for sure. And, it's just being willing. That's what it comes down to. The hardest step is the first step.
Yeah.
It's just important for people to know, you have to put what you read in a book into practice, or it's just gonna be an idea. It
Yeah.
won't go anywhere. And
Right.
that first step, just step into it, and what's the worst that could happen? That's the thing I like people to look at.
Yeah.
They don't follow you? That's not that horrible.
No, it's always ego at that point, right? The fragile egos. Well, I
Sure.
want to wrap with one last question. It's a question I like to ask all my guests, and that is, and if you've listened to my podcast, you've heard me say this. Back when I was a kid, people would ask me, "Oh, how's school and what do you do?" And in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, I wish they would ask me this question. Or I talked to a gentleman, he was talking about doing junkets, so you have these actors that go on all these interviews to promote their show. And the whole time I'll watch these interviews and I'm thinking these guys are just getting the same
Mm.
question over and over and over again. And I always thought, man, what a great question would be is, what's a question you wish I would have asked you? Or what's a question you wish people would ask you? So that's my question to you is, what is a question you wish people, not necessarily, in this interview, but just in general, what is a question you wish people would ask you that they rarely ever do, but you wish they would because you'd love to share something? What is the question? And then what's the answer?
What brings you joy? I would love somebody to ask me that question. I would love the depth of just caring about me to that level. And what brings me joy is travel, as I mentioned before. That's the one thing I can truly do small talk for hours and hours. And so I think sometimes I don't feel that genuinely people ask to listen. And I think that would be huge for me to feel that somebody really cared about me enough to ask what brought me joy.
That's good. I love that. That's good. And so, and the short answer, travel, but why? Why does it
Uh,
give you so much joy?
Interacting with new cultures, having the food, having just the experience. I love third world countries. I love learning how people are put in certain positions and how some of them rise up. The director of my school in Uganda, he was a child who had no education. He learned how to read by the trash he found on the street. And now he's a director of a school. He's an attorney and he lives in Uganda for women's advocacy. That's travel. That's like the core of what I love to do. Give me some good stories and help me meet some really interesting people.
Well, we are going to have to dig in on another time to discuss some of these other kind of doors you've opened, and I'd love to explore that. So I thank you so much. I'd like to wrap by letting people uh, ask you how. What would you like to tell people as we wrap up here to contact you?
For sure. The first thing I would let you know, if you're a parent of a teenager in middle or high school, the best time to start planning for college is now, right now. Regardless of what age they're at, now is the time. If you want scholarships, the longer the runway, the better. So that means the earlier, the better. Okay. And then as far as reaching me, I love to offer your listeners either a 30-minute discovery call where they can ask me questions about college ready, college admissions. What is the strategy to graduate debt free, like my slogan goes. And my website is collegereadyplan.com. On there, you will find a ton of free resources. And just know that your child has no idea how to do this, and they need your leadership to help to get them through.
Excellent. Well, Shellee, thank you so much for being with me. I've so enjoyed this. And like I said, I'm excited to talk to you more offline and learn more about a number of those doors you open. Folks, thank you so much for listening. I'm David Susan, and this is Inside the Leader's Mind. Thank you, Shellee.
Thank you.